you prefer a stay-at-home wife or a woman that gets her own bread?
Heidi.
Hi.
We've
How you
been
doing?
23 years.
Okay, so my question was, does he prefer a stay-at-home wife or a woman that gets her own bread?
Stay home.
Stay at home?
These are my 4 kids.
Well, the reason is because masculinity has to be earned and femininity has to be protected and preserved. And if you got a woman that's out working, trying to find her own bread, you better make sure you're a lot better.
And what's up, Utah? Welcome back to We're the People. Happy Tuesday. Hope you guys are stoked so far with the new network. We had One Nation Under God, or the Black Robe Regiment with the Tuggles. We're super excited about that. Every Sunday, they're going to be just going hard, activating the churches, activating men and women of faith to start standing up for our country. You heard from Natalie Klein and Monica Wilbur on their show, trying to get focus on education. And now we've got a show that I'm obviously pumped about. He's been with us for a long time. Tom Haselton, what's up, brother?
How you doing? It's so good to be back.
I mean, yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. We've all been busy. You've been busy. But look, Tom was natural to have a show on here because, we've had so many guests on here together. Like, Tom was always like, just the perfect, partner to do this with. And honestly, like, I got so many requests for you to have a show. You ask good questions. You're sharp. So we've talked about him having a show, and this is a show I'm very excited about. And first off, make sure, again, we are really going to push the website. I'm not even pushing socials. I'm pushing the website because we know socials will come down. But what we really want is people going to the website. And if you go there, you're going to find top news every day. We want people to be able to go to our website to get their news because KSL is giving you garbage. So go check out the website. You see news, and then boom, scroll down a little bit. All the shows, including right there, Power Players. Tom Haselton, let's go, brother.
That's right. So when you asked me to do Power Players, I said, hey, that's a great theme, and I'll tell you why it's a great theme for a show, at least for me, and we're gonna have my wife Heidi on it.
I love it
as well. But the reason that I like that so much is because the movement that we're trying to produce here it needs to be a cultural movement.
Yes,
we can't have this. These Gen X guys up here talking when it's not cool to the Gen Z, the millennials, and whatever the newest generation is. We need people to understand that this is not just a movement for. Yes, it's a movement for freedom, but it's not just something that the old guys do. It's something that matters to everybody. And if you look at what people have done in the Democrat Party for decades, rock the vote. They've done all types of things to get out there. I mean, the Woodstock issue, the Woodstock people, those guys came in and they started voting a certain way because it was popular.
Yeah.
And so we need the young millennials, the young Gen Zs, even the Gen X's to get on board. Some of the boomers, I don't care who you are, from old to young, we need them to get on board. And this show is something that's going to, I think, capture a lot of that cultural movement where we're going to bring people on here that actually matter to the state of Utah, that matter to the country, that matter to their community, their families, on the very first level. And this is why it's important. It's important to business. It's important to families. It's important to your faith, your friends, and really just who you are as a person. And seeing people that are at a certain level in their life and how they've come to that and that are not cancelable and they're not afraid to speak out. To me, that's what this show is going to embody.
I'm excited, and I think you're perfect for it. And, this is interesting in Utah because Utah is such a unique place because in Utah, we're looking for people who are willing to stand up, not just against the woke, because in Utah, obviously across the country, we're fighting this war against this woke Marxist ideology. But in Utah, there's another side that we're fighting against, which is the rhino establishment, Romney, Cox's, these Republican globalists, the KSL, the Deseret News. So we find ourselves trying to, connect with the average person here in the state of Utah that says, you know what, we're done with the woke, but I'm also not, and I don't like the way the Republican Party has drifted into this, establishment type Romneyite Cox's. And we're trying to, and I love it that we're going to find people. There's a lot of them out there. And we're going to bring them on here, and we're going to elevate them and elevate their voices because you hit the nail on the head. Politics is downstream from culture. So what I'd like to do, because obviously you guys know I'm a fan of Tom for a lot of reasons. I'm going to share a couple things, and then I'm going to have him share a little bit of his story. But, I met Tom when I was running for office. And one of the things I really liked about Tom was Tom's not afraid to be bold. He is very much a man's man. He respects his wife. He respects women. But in a world of men that have become very beta, and I would say in Utah, very teddy bear Christians. Tom is the type of guy that's not a teddy bear Christian. He's not afraid to say, hey, you know what, right is right, wrong is wrong. Love the person, but you know what, this doesn't fly. And he's bold, he's confident, he's strong, he's successful, and I think he is to me just a great. I mean, he's a great friend and just a great reflection of what it means to be a man today. So, anyways, I'm pumped about him. So I want to turn it over to you a little bit. So for our listeners who maybe don't know a lot about you, would you mind kind of telling us a little bit your story? How did Tom Haselton become Tom Haselton, and how did you become awake politically?
Well, let's go back to the beginning, and obviously a lot of things have to do with upbringing, parents, wife, kids, people you surround yourself with. For the most part, I think I've always had a great compass, a North Star, regardless, and never been one who's strayed too far in anything. And I've been able to keep my head about me with everything that goes on in the world. But I was born in California, but raised in Utah, and my parents made the smart decision to get out of California early and raise their family in Utah. And so, I'm 6 of 7, so I've got 5 older siblings and 1 younger, and all very successful. They've all done very well. There's 30 grandkids in all. And parents, congratulate them to doing a great job and doing that. I think that's one of the biggest flexes in this life is what type of a family do you leave behind when you leave this existence here. And so, and that's part of what I'm trying to do is make sure that what my goal is in this life is to exceed my own expectations and try to be more than what or who I am, and at least or meet up to that, so I don't have regrets. And so as I look back, I grew up in South Jordan, Utah, right in the heart of Salt Lake County. Just good people, and nothing crazy, nothing over the top. Nobody was too wealthy. Nobody was too poor. We did have poor amongst us, but it wasn't a crazy society. The neighborhood that I came out of, there have been billionaires. There have been professional athletes. There's multiple successful people, and that all tells you about the type of community that we had within this South Jordan neighborhood. And I think it rivals any community I've ever heard of, at least in my generation. And it was because of good people, and it's because we stuck together. And so I, early on, I've always been at least semi-politically awake, and I thought I was, and I'll get to that in just a second on how I woke up a little more. But I got married at 22, almost 23 years old, and found my beautiful bride. She was Holiday Skyline area, and fortunately, I made myself available to those Upper East Siders, So for those of you that don't know, there's still a divide amongst the West and East Side for whatever reason, and my parents didn't care. They just moved out to the West Side. It was cheaper. But I married a great woman, and she's got a great family. They've got deep Salt Lake City roots. They go all the way back to inception there, and so it's really neat to see her take on things and her strength within our family. She's pretty darn amazing, and I think one of the biggest reasons she's amazing is because she has to put up with me. I'm pretty tough.
Yeah, hats off to Heidi.
She's tougher, and so as I progressed through, I started my business at 21 years old. I couldn't work for anybody. And I just felt that it was something that I needed to do, and that was how I was going to, support my family. Even though my father-in-law said that, I should finish my degree, I dropped out because I was making more than my professor at the time, and I felt it was something that I could do because I believed in myself. And I don't think too many people today, or not enough people today, actually believe in themselves and understand what and who they are. And if they do, I mean, we have a better world. We don't need to listen to what everybody else says about who we are. And so, so we have 4 kids, and aging, ranges from 22 to 14 years old. We've got 2 left in school and 2 that are out of school, and so we're just a few years left and we're done. But 9/11 was probably my crux to wake up. My wife was pregnant with our first at the time, and I was leaving for work out the door, and I had a popular radio station on. That's where my news came from at the time. And they said, this is happening. So I ran back in the house, woke my wife up and said, you got to turn the TV on and look at what's happening. And if you remember, the nation stood still.
Oh, that was wild.
Everybody was watching. It didn't matter where you were.
I remember it.
It was, the nation is under attack. And I get the chills talking about it, and just remembering that moment. And so that was a big red pill for me. And I'm not going to go into, all the details, but quite simply, it woke me up as to what was happening in modern day. And if you really look at the Patriot Act and some of the things that were instituted amongst the American people, you'll find that it's there were a lot of nefarious things that went on that really stripped us of our freedoms.
Yeah.
Because of that day. Say what you want about how it happened or anything else. Those things are true. And it was pushed, as you know, by a lot of the talking heads to say these are good things.
Right.
And so
John Hannity, all the conservatives were pushing that.
Limbaugh, Hannity, didn't matter, and George Bush was touted as the hero.
Right.
Giuliani and everybody else, right? And so, again, without getting into the weeds, it was enough to wake me up, and I was pretty young. But I wasn't quite awake. It wasn't until the recession hit in 2008 and 2009 that rock bottom. I mean, the stock market was at just over 6,000 points. And that's where I found out that the media was lying to us. I didn't know that until then. I thought you turn the TV on and you got 60 Minutes or you've got one of these network primetime shows. They're giving you reality.
Yeah, you just trust it. Like the natural thing is to trust these guys.
I absolutely believed that. And I didn't necessarily believe it like, hook, line, and sinker, but it's like they're giving you the majority. These are investigative journalists, and they're guys that know it, and they're women that know it. Why would they lie?
Yeah, how are we so dumb back then?
Right. I literally was stupid. I feel.
I think most people, it's like.
But we're now in an information age, and the internet was still pretty, it was out, but it wasn't like crazy, right? So you could look up YouTube videos and things, and you're like, wait a minute. So I remember I saw this video about the media being owned by certain corporations, certain families, all this stuff, and I was like, are you kidding me right now? These guys aren't separate from these guys. They're one big conglomerate. There's like maybe 3 or 4, and that's it. That's what really woke me up. And it had to do with a series of wars and 9/11 and stock market crash and all this stuff and how things are going. So I really became a student of history, and not just history happening. History doesn't just happen. It's created.
Yeah.
There was a book that my father showed me, an old history book of when in their school system that actually gave that quote. Okay.
Really? Jeez.
History history doesn't happen. History is created. That means that people are doing this. Okay. Wars are started for a certain reason. Media propaganda's out there. From Roman times, give them bread and circus and let them ignore all the politics and what really controls the world at the time, and the people are happy. So that's what the people are being fed, is bread and circus. And so I realized right then, this is all wrong. And how do I do enough to teach my family and to know enough about this? So I became a student of all this. Some may call it conspiracy, and that right there in and of itself, the word conspiracy theory was created by the CIA in the John F. Kennedy assassination in 1963.
Yeah.
Those were 2 words, but it was never combined.
Right.
And so they did that to pin people like you and me as conspiracy theorists. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a guy that seeks truth and honesty. I'm not a party to an affiliated party. I'm not a Democrat, a Republican. I just want to know what's real. And I want to know what's going to be able to help people raise their families, live a good life, and not be so overburdened by what the government and by what our our media and all these other talking heads say and do? Why are we listening to them?
All right.
Right. So that was my red pill moment. And, we had a son. My oldest son went through cancer. He had childhood leukemia. That woke me up to different things. Food, what's in our food, what's in our vaccinations, what are doctors really doing? What are they studying? They don't go to medical school to study nutrition. They go to medical school to study, pharmaceuticals and what each one of them does, right? Now you have your surgeons, which I absolutely love. I have a brother who's a physician. He's done a lot of good work, and I praise and commend him and all the others for that. There's many good doctors, but there's a lot of things that since the pandemic that we've learned that aren't good for us, right? And again, that woke up a lot of people. So fast forward from the recession into the pandemic, okay, of 2020. Now, I happen to be on I used to be a road cyclist like this guy right here. He was I'd say a pretty dang good cyclist. And
back in the day when I was a $145,
right?
Skinny, scrawny guy.
It taught us how to suffer. We
taught me how to suffer and not be respected by any men.
We were more female than male.
No one respects a 145 twig.
No, they don't. And I have a lot of cyclist friends still, so no offense.
I love my cyclist friends, but yeah.
But during that, I was in Africa. We were in this, I was trained up for this race called Cape Epic, and I was at the top of my game. And we flew out in March of 2020, and on my flight out, I get a text from my son, "Hey, Dad, Rudy Gobert just shut down the NBA. And, the LDS conference is not being held," and like all this. I'm like, they don't shut down the NBA. The Mormon Church doesn't stop holding its conference sessions. Like, this stuff does never happen.
Yeah, it was pretty epic.
Maybe 100 years ago when they had the Spanish flu, they shut some things down, but nothing modern time, right?
No.
So anyway, they canceled the race over there, and there was an earthquake in Salt Lake City. I think it was March 17th of 20. Okay, I may be off on the day, but I was on my way home. They canceled the race, so we were flying home, and everybody was panicking. We couldn't get a flight, so we had to fly from South Africa from Cape Town to Johannesburg, South Africa, and from there home, 17-hour flight to Atlanta and then Atlanta in. We took the last bird out of Johannesburg, or we'd have been stuck for weeks in this city of 6 million people. I even called to get a hold of one of my uncles. It's a senator, to say, you may need to get a hold of the State Department, get us out of here. It was that crazy. We had the last bird off the ground, and people were cheering when wheels were up.
I bet.
So we landed in Atlanta, and I'm walking around the Atlanta concourse, and there's no one there. It's me, my 3 buddies, and like 2 or 3 other people. I took video, and it's the busiest concourse internationally in the world, the Atlanta International Concourse. No one there. And everything's covered in plastic. I'm like, what's going on? Is everything okay? Like, is this really a big deal?
Yeah.
So I told my buddies at the time, this is not about the United States. And yes, you have the UN and you have some like the BRIC nations and some of the other people, but this was a systematic shutdown. I was in Africa and it shut down. Okay, it wasn't in South Africa. It was every African country. It was every European country. They don't have the same government. Why do we care what Africa's doing? Okay, so I knew right then and there. I'm awake enough, and I was awake enough then to say something really bad is going down, and we need to wake up and be prepared to stand up against this. So I told my buddies that, and they're like, "Tom, you're crazy." Okay, they straight up told me I was crazy, and later they said, "Actually, you were right. I didn't need to predict things. I'm just awake enough to know this is what happens when society's shut down." And if you look at the history of, Germany and Russia and these and all the nefarious things they did over there, there's a playbook for it. They've written this playbook. There's things in the playbook that have happened time and time again amongst the people in the world, government people, right? So when I was gone, my wife was panicked a little bit. She pulled the cars out of the garage, 72-hour kits, put them in there. And I says, just put everything in the, 2 cars. And we had a couple kids that could drive. And I says, if you need to drive out, just go. The earthquake hit, and I had my guys come check on the house. That was Heidi's red pill moment. And before that, we couldn't really talk about this stuff. My wife would say, "Hey, who are you talking to?" And I'm like, "I'm talking to my old man." "Are you talking about your conspiracies again?" "I don't want to hear it. He's putting thoughts in your head and all this stuff that you don't need to know." And I had to like hide the fact that I'm talking to my dad. Okay. Later, and he passed a couple years ago. And later she said, I remember your dad talking about this. And she went through a list of things. And she said he was right on every single one.
So cool.
Same thing.
Cool. So cool when you're on the same page with your spouse.
So that was Heidi's red pill moment. And at that point, she was almost getting deeper than I was like, hey, whoa, slow it down. Like you're drinking from a fire hose, right? And so she said, you know this? I'm like, yeah, I know this. And she says, well, don't act so cool that you know all this stuff. I'm like, okay, well, next time I tell you, I won't know it, so you can know something. But anyway, so that's the, what's funny is politically, I need to answer that question. I was really involved with Mitt Romney. Okay. I thought Mitt was a good guy. That's where I was. I was awake on government, this, that, and the other, but I'm like, Mitt's a Mormon. How can he be a bad guy? There's no way that Mitt's corrupt. Okay. And so that's what I'm thinking. Mitt. And I was so in for Mitt Romney. I was like, I'm going to hold a fundraiser at my house. I mean, I held even back then I was holding fundraisers. I thought Mitt was the guy. And I remember one guy telling me, Mitt's not the guy. And that was my dad. Dude, he was right on everything. I'm like, Dad, you're going against it. There's no way he's going to be the president. And, even if he's not, like, we need to follow what Mitt Romney is doing, not knowing that Mitt's part of the club.
Yeah.
Okay. And so and then after Mitt lost, so that would have been what he ran in, was it 8 against Obama or was it 12? No, well, I think it was McCain.
12.
So then it would have been 12. His second round, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So it was 12. So it was after 12. So for the last, 12 years, I've been fairly awake. Okay. And there's still things I learned daily or monthly or whatever. But I can't believe that I was on the Mitt Romney train.
I can't either. I lost a lot of respect for you.
But I woke up.
All right. You can be forgiven.
Anyway, so politically speaking, that's where I was. And even now, it's not, I'm not somebody who looks to any politician, I don't care who you are, or any man for that matter, and worship that man. Dude, they're fallible.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to blanket statement that with every single man that's on this earth right here. Okay. I would rather take my issues and my problems. It doesn't mean I can't follow man and see that things are good for man and address those internally, right? Through prayer, supplication, study, whatever. It doesn't mean they're all wrong, but every single man has fallacies.
Yeah.
And that's a problem with people today because they look at even like a Donald Trump, and I like Trump, okay? But they worship him.
Yeah, it's a little concerning.
It's very concerning.
Yeah.
Right?
All men need to be held accountable. That's why the Constitution is very clear about that. Power corrupts everybody. Everybody is corruptible.
Absolutely. And absolute power absolutely corrupts.
Yep. So let me ask you this. What can our listeners expect to see from the show?
Well, again, the good thing with me is that I have at least the ability, the experience. I've been raised correctly, and I've got a great background. I feel like I add a strength to a lot of people that don't know how to fight back, that don't know how to. And again, that's why I want to bring some power players on here to say, these guys are actually doing this. And when you have somebody lead, people just need someone to follow and say, they've given me strength, they've given me direction. Maybe it's just one quote or one thing or just encouragement. And I think that's what people can expect from this show here is that they're going to see that there's other people out there like them. And again, power players, yes, that doesn't mean that they're above you.
Right.
Okay. That just means that they've taken the next step to say, I'm in. With whatever that may be.
Yeah, we did a show with Jason Buck, and we're actually airing that a week from when you guys see this. So this will be next Wednesday,
okay,
sometime next week on Alexi and I's show. But it was a show you and I did. And for those of you who don't know who Jason Buck is, he was a big-time football player for BYU back in the 80s, and I remember him. I remember being like, he's the man.
Number 99.
Oh, yeah. And I went on to play professional football, and the three of us, we did a show together, and honestly, that was so inspiring, seeing someone like him just stand up and just, fearlessly stand for truth. And we actually filmed that a little bit ago, but I held that show back because I was so impressed by it. That one really stuck out to me, to see him and you, and because to me that's what this state needs, is more people like that. And so, that's what I see. I see, again, not that, someone like Jason Buck is above anyone, like you said. I think that's exactly right. But he is, but we do have leaders in the community, leaders, cultural leaders. Like, I think I'd consider him a cultural leader and a leader in many other ways. But I think it's courage breeds courage. And I see you as one of these leaders, a successful entrepreneur. And I really think our listeners are going to be inspired to see successful people that they can look up to, not afraid to stand up against the woke mob, not afraid to stand for truth. Because I think as more people see people like you and Jason Buck, and there's some incredible people in this state that are awake. And I look forward to them coming on here with you and standing up for truth, standing up for their children, standing up, carrying that title of liberty, not being afraid to speak truth to power. So yeah, I'm pumped for it. I just think you're going to do a phenomenal job. I'm really excited about that.
Well, thanks, and I appreciate the opportunity, because now I've got a larger audience that I can tell and teach and bring people on to inspire them. And again, Jason Buck I thought was phenomenal as well. And when you see the show, you'll understand this. But the guy's writing a book about the Constitution and how to do things, and he told me, Tom, the coaches and the players, some of these other guys, a lot of them aren't my friends anymore because I stood up. But it doesn't matter to me because I know what truth is, and I need to speak truth boldly. And that's what people need to understand. Like, it's not necessarily always the popular thing to do, but is that what you want to be known by? Is that you were the popular person and you did what everybody else did in mainstream? I think most people want to be known that they're doing their own thing, but it made an impact somehow for good. I mean, when I die, that's what I want. I want people to say, he actually stood up for the righteous cause, or stood up for this and did right by his family and his friends and that type of thing.
Yeah, and I just think we need more role models, and that's really what I see. Role models and heroes. That's to me Jason Buck, people like you, people who we need leaders, not out in D.C., not politicians who act one way and do the other, but we need people who. Just good people who have put their lives in order, who have done a good job with what God has given them in their own dominion, who are willing to come up and say, you know what, I'm not afraid to stand for truth. I'm not afraid, to lead. And in the end, those are what heroes are. That's what legends are in my book. And that could be, we played with the titles. It's almost like legends would have been a good title too, because to me, that's the difference. A legend is someone who you remember, someone who their legend precedes them because what they did was beyond just making money, beyond the now. They left a legacy. And in the end, you look back through history, the legends we remember, it is people who stood for truth. It is people whose their principles is what we remember, not how much money they made, but their principles and and they're willing to stand. William Wallace. And I mean, we could go down the list of great. Our founding fathers, it was the principles. Yes, they were successful. Yes, they were financially on it, but it was their principles and there was their commitment to principles and truth that made them legends. And I kind of like that name too for the show.
Something you talked about there, and again, I don't want people that are watching this to think that we bring a power player on or a legend. We're not talking about money. But those that have been gifted with the ability to make money and that God has granted them that ability, because I think everything comes from God, what are you doing with that money? Okay? It doesn't mean you can't live a nice life. But what it means is that you need to be giving back, helping others, starting causes, giving to good causes. You can't just retain this stuff like Getty did and die with this mega fortune. What good does that do, right? Why aren't you out helping people? And so I think that you bring people on that have made it to a certain level, the world's full of them. Yeah. And who are they to their core? If you remove money from everybody, both good, bad, old, young, and it doesn't matter, who are they to their core? And I think that's what people need to remember and realize on this show, is that those are the types of people we're bringing here. I'm looking at character, I'm looking at heart, I'm looking at drive, and those that just don't quit to do something that's good for the world, for the community. And I think that, to me, that's what this show is going to embody.
I love it. Well, Tom, next time he'll be here, right here, and he'll be running the show. And so I'm excited to have you show. I'm excited to have you on. I think our listeners and viewers are going to be pumped too. So you guys who are supporting, you guys who are watching, sharing, who are also not afraid to stand up for truth, may never sit in this room with us, but you support what we're doing and you care about the cause. We sure appreciate you guys. And honestly, it's, we have the greatest people in the state. And when we get organized, which is what this is all about, when we get organized and we start standing in numbers, we already know who wins. God wins, and we're on, and that's the team we're on. So look forward to seeing Tom's show. You can catch him every Tuesday on, go to our website or go to YouTube or Rumble. It'll be on all the platforms. But thank you guys for your support, and God bless you guys, and God bless Utah.